COVID, gangbusters at ratings. Gangbusters at ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side. Let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in. If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads?
Yeah. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious. What they're actually doing, telling the person what to say. It's an art form. It's always leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in.
What actually happens when a network cares more about ratings than the truth? In the case of CNN, owned by parent company Warner Media, it seems that CNN has resorted to other means in order to keep you watching. What you're about to see is so shocking. Admissions about COVID, its impact, the bias, and things that we've all suspected but have never been able to confirm until now.
It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. It does, The happiest days in news, people, I would imagine, turn it off and then they go with the camera. They don't stay glued to it. Unless there's something that's uniting them, like the moon landing or something like that. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in, I imagine. What's the scariest thing there? Sad news doesn't do well with ratings. Like, if you can get someone impassioned, that does really well with ratings. Sad news, back to back to back, doesn't do really well unless it affects them directly. COVID, gangbusters at ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side, which I have a major problem with, that we're tallying how many people die every day. Because I've even looked at it and be like, let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. And I'm like, what am I rallying for? That's a problem.
Yeah.
That we're doing that, Like,
well, I mean, it helps with ratings.
Of course, yeah, but I would expect. I have a job. Sure, like, I'm happy about that, but I don't know.
Who gets to decide how long that stays on, or
head of the network? I've been in the room many a times where my director tells me take it down, and I take it down, and then we get a phone call, the bat phone rings in the back, literally a red phone, this special red phone rings.
Yeah.
And they pick it up, and this producer picks it up, and you hear mop, 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 mop. And every so often they put it on speaker, and it's like the head of the network being like, there's nothing that you're doing right now that makes me want to stick. Put the numbers back up, because that's the most enticing thing that we have. So put it back up. So things like that are constantly talked about.
It's most likely a Jeff Zucker call. If Jeff Zucker, the head of our CNN, he makes the call. Is that the head of the network with the red bat phone? Yeah.
Now, in the first video, Charlie Chester and Rachel Hoffman gave us a first-hand account into how CNN's president, Jeff Zucker, really is on a minute-to-minute basis, even when it comes to graphics on the screen, COVID graphics. Charlie Chester referring to the red phone that rings to update the graphics, because remember, folks, it's all about ratings.
I think there's just a COVID fatigue, so whenever a new story comes up, they're going to latch onto it. They've already announced inner office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate, global warming, and that's going to be our next I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be our focus. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without it saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's just going to be constantly showing videos of decline in ice and weather warming up and like the effects it's having on the economy and really
Who
diving into
decides that?
the head of the network, like just
Who's that? Is that Zucker?
Zucker, yeah. I imagine that he's got his council and they've all like discussed like where they think
So that's like the next.
pandemic like story like that will be to death. But that one's got longevity. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a definitive ending to the pandemic, or like it'll taper off to a point that it's not a problem anymore. Probably think it's going to take years, so they'll probably be able to milk that for quite a bit. So we'll see.
So climate change overload.
Be prepared, it's coming. Stories, like right now, we had an inside track right now where 2 stories are going to be pushed. Climate change is going to be the next COVID thing for CNN. We're gonna hone in.
Focus on that.
I love it.
But that's a fair thing to focus on.
But to commit to that as a network,
You said it's going to be like the new COVID.
I feel like, well, that's the way it was built. Unless that was just a call to arms to get people to start writing and then we'll assess it. I don't know. But
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear? Like climate.
yeah, fear sells.
But why don't you guys at CNN show the recovery rates on the death tolls at least?
The recovery rates. Who's had it and then recovered. Because that's not scary. I would imagine that's why they don't do it. Yeah.
That's what I figured.
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think no one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious based on like the amount of stories that we do. Like the fact that we have a segment called The Good Stuff, which is a feel-good thing, but it's a dedicated moment at the end to like almost like be the ice cream to alleviate, like everything that you've been through, like like something sweet to end it with. Because everything else is like doom and gloom. I mean, it's human nature. I mean, like I find myself watching more news when there's something looming and scary.
Jester seems to have lost faith in CNN's ability to do honest reporting, not just at CNN actually, but in news generally.
I mean, there's no such thing as unbiased news. It doesn't exist. There's too many agendas. There's too many people that have jobs that need to feed their families for it to be unbiased. It's impossible. The most unbiased news is grassroots, out of people's basements with podcasts. That's the most unbiased that we get. And unfortunately, the trend is that when they could actually start making money off of it, you start to inherently destroy the thing that you love, by like moving up.
Do you think CNN's done that?
Yeah. I don't think CNN's any different than Fox. I think it's on the different side of it, but I think they come off as very altruistic, but I think we bury the lead a lot. I think we...
What's that mean?
You ever watch... We have to sit down and watch it together for me to like point out some things. Listen to the way they ask questions. Because they're not actually asking questions.
Who?
Any reporter on CNN.
Okay.
What they're actually doing is they're telling the person what to say. It's an art form.
What's it?
There's an art form to it. But it would be like the accident that you just saw, right? Like one of the reporters would be like, so that that man clearly went through the intersection, slamming into this car or whatever it was, and it really is It's unfortunate that, our infrastructure of traffic lights and whatnot is falling apart in the city. How do you feel about the traffic lights and the infrastructure and whatnot? We've led them to talk about how we want them to talk about it. It's always like leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. And the only people that we let on the air, for the most part, are people that have a proven track record of taking the bait. I think there's like an art to manipulation. I think some people have figured it out inherently, but
Like with the media, or just like in
media
general?
and in just conversations.
Yeah.
I think when you ever meet somebody that like you feel like you're being gaslit by, start to listen to how they word things.
What do you mean?
Inflection, saying things like twice, like there's little subtleties to how to manipulate people.
What's the difference between doing that like on a one-on-one basis or like a widespread news organization?
Oh yeah, I mean it's enough to change the world. Yeah.
Isn't that the plan?
There's a plan. I think this time it worked with like the Trump thing. But look at the other side, how devastated they were. So were we the good guys, the bad guys? Depends on which side you were looking at it, though.
Chester is fully aware of the power that CNN has over people. His words should caution people everywhere who takes the journalism at these corporations seriously. He tells us not to take it seriously. Chester tells us explicitly how the news business works. Now, if you thought this was bad, stay tuned for the next one, because in the next one, Chester gives us CNN's roadmap to the reality that they want you to believe